What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and go check out our Instagram pages where I post daily original photos of our life, our animals, and everything in between. So, as I promised earlier in the week, we are going to be doing the watering system on our DIY maternity rat rack. The day after I posted this previous rat and breeding care video, look what decided to come in the mail. All of the new rodent valves that we have been waiting for in order to get this done. So today we are going to be working on that, but first I want to show you our mice. All right, so I wanted to give a little update on our mice. So far these ones seem to be getting along really well, but I don't see any plump bellies on these two girls yet. However, this is the male, and then I wanted to show you these females. Look how big that girl is. And that one's kind of hidden underneath the substrate, but she is just as big. So I am without a doubt certain that they are pregnant and are probably gonna have babies here in the next week, which is gonna be exciting. Well, there she's moving around. You can see how plump she is. She's not quite as plump as the other one, but you can definitely see that round belly. They did have some nests going, but I just cleaned them out, so they're gonna have to make a new nest. But yeah, that one is definitely getting ready to pop here in the next couple days. All right, hey dude, where are you going? Watch your little feeties. All right, so hopefully next week's video, or the week after that, we'll be able to show you some mice babies. Yeah, so we're really excited. I'm hoping we get some mice babies this week. They're looking super plump. I believe the last time they got really plump like that, it was only about 3 or 4 days before we started seeing little mice babies in there. So can't wait for that. So the other thing I'm gonna show you in this video today before we get working on this DIY watering system is we are gonna be doing a rebuild on that valve that kind of came, I don't know if it came faulty or if maybe it became laxed, but I'm gonna show you guys how to rebuild a rodent drinking valve. So let's get right into that. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna disconnect this from the bulkhead on the bucket. And I always keep a paper towel just in case it dribbles a little bit. And you simply just twist this, and it has a little thing in there that when you twist this, it blocks this off so it won't flow out of the bucket if you have any water left in there. And that's it. So we're gonna let that sit right there. And then for reference, I have a little piece of plexiglass that sits right here that keeps this tube from sitting right on top of the grate where the rats can chew on it. So just if you have a little bit of laxed hose, just a tiny bit of plexiglass from your local hardware store, you can just stick underneath there, kind of a little bit of a guard to keep the rats from chewing on your cords. Okay, so we're gonna leave that right there. So now it's disconnected, and now we're gonna go down below and we're gonna drain the line so we can replace the drinking valve. Okay, so I have just a little bucket for the little bit of water that's probably gonna drain out of this when I take it off. And then for the sake of this video, since we got our new water valves in, I'm just gonna replace the valve, and then I'm going to take this to a different area and we will change the spring and check the O-ring in it, and then we will just keep it for an extra. But so that way I can get water back to these rats quicker. See, it's kind of leaking out. I think it's just the spring that's really lax. You just barely touch it and it just drips out. So it's not a huge problem right now. It just gets a little area of substrate, but we want to make sure we get it fixed. So we're just going to replace the valve. See, we just let a little bit out, and I lifted this back up so it kind of keeps that flow from coming down. So we're just gonna put this back on like so. And we're gonna reattach the tube. And the tube, just simply, you just press it on there, and it's kind of flared out at the top. So when the tube goes on there, it just clamps around it. You just want to get it pushed on there as
far as you can. Now we're gonna go back up top and hook our bucket back up so that way we can make sure this works properly. All right, I'm gonna reattach this to our bucket. Simply push it in, twist it, and you'll kind of feel a little bit of a lock. It's on there, it's not coming off. Make sure plexiglass is where it should be. All right, now we're gonna come back down here. All right, we just got a little bit of water back in there. So now I'm gonna take my bucket and I'm actually gonna go add some water to the bucket. I never fill the buckets up all the way. You can see the water level there. I usually fill them up only about halfway, just in case there is a leak or an accident or for some reason. That's as much water as I leave, and that is enough for an entire rack of rats for an entire week. Now, of course, when it starts to get a little warmer, I'll probably fill it up to here because they'll be drinking a lot more water, but that little bit of water is enough for them for the entire week. So that way, if for some reason, if I came in here and checked and something did flood, this is not enough water to even fill up an entire one of these bins. So that's kind of a little fail-safe for me. All right, so before we start our valve rebuild, please don't mind the scratching in the background because somebody wants time out. He knows it's feeding day, so he wants to come out and roam and be fed. Okay, we have our drinking valve that needs to be rebuilt. And then if you saw last week's video, I showed you the rebuild kit that comes with the springs and the O-rings. So we can kind of get a little bit better contrast here. So the valve itself looks like it's one piece, but actually all you do is grasp each end here and it twists apart right here. And then there's what the inside looks like. You have an O-ring in there, and then your spring is right here. It looks really nasty in there. These O-rings look pretty small to go in there. So let's go ahead and take this apart. Callum, you have to be quiet, please. So the spring, you just kind of gently pull it off of the valve part, and that's what it looks like. So the valve looks fine. So I'm gonna put that back on, and I'm thinking it's gotta be the O-ring, and it's hard to see, but there is a little O-ring in there, which is where this little O-ring goes, which that's kind of silly because there's actually it's hard to see, but there's actually a larger O-ring in here. So I don't know why that's not included in the rebuild kit, because obviously if one O-ring can go, then this one can eventually go too. This one's a little bit bigger. So I guess if you did need to replace this O-ring, you could probably find it at your local hardware store. It looks like a pretty generic O-ring. All right, I'm gonna go get a tool from my garage so I can get these out, and then I will show you what the O-rings look like. All right, I got this out pretty easily. This is just a tiny little flathead you would use to fix like eyeglasses. So the little O-ring just sits right down in there. And it looks like it's still good, so I don't know why. All the parts seem to be good, so I'm wondering if it's this O-ring, but they all still seem So while these O-rings still seem like they're really good, I think I'm gonna put this, just clean it up and put it back together and see if it works. So for now, I think I'm just gonna So I'll just, as soon as I get this all back together, I'll retest it. If for some reason it's still not working, I'll probably just set it aside because I don't see anything wrong with this. So it could just be something was wrong. Maybe it came faulty and I might just have to toss it. So, but there you have it. That is how you take it apart and you can replace the different parts. If for some reason the O-rings get crusty and they don't seal properly. All right, so I just cleaned up a little bit in here. So we're just gonna put it back together. One thing is when you do put brand new O-rings in this case, these ones are used, but I'm just gonna, you're gonna wanna lube them up with something. Now, something we use that works really well is just some bag balm, just to give it a little bit of a greasy texture. And that way, if the rat for some reason gets a little bit of it, it's not gonna hurt them. So you can get this at your local drugstore. This is something that we've always just kept around our house for ages. So it just looks like that. It's kind of an antibiotic ointment. And you just need a little bit. So I'm just gonna grease up the end of my finger a little bit. And we're just gonna rub just a smidgen on there. Get your hands a little bit greasy. Just gonna put a little bit on there. Try not to get it on everything else. All right, we're gonna put this one back in. We'll push that in there with a tool in a second. Same thing with this one. Just get a little bit on there. Same thing. Just get it back down in there flat. Same thing with this one. We're just gonna, this bigger one has kind of like a little groove in there that you have to push it down in, which this one was probably not meant to come out and be changed, but I think that's kind of silly that they don't include that in the rebuild kit. All right, so it looks like it's down in there pretty good. All right, so now we're gonna take our piece, reinsert it back in there. There's the valve. And then you just screw this back on, just finger tight. So once you tighten this down, you can kind of feel how it starts to get a little bit harder as it's pushing against that O-ring. So because it has that O-ring, you don't need to super crank it down with any tools. Hand tight is fine. And that is it. That is how you rebuild a valve.
So I hope that helps you guys if you ever have to rebuild a rodent drinking valve, kind of show you how to take it apart. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I really don't like that they don't include that other O-ring. That's kind of silly that you make a rebuild kit and you don't include both of the O-rings. I don't know why you wouldn't include both, because you figure over time, if one goes out, they're both going to go out. So Reptile Basics, if you ever see this, include the second O-ring so we don't have to go buy another one. If you're going to have a rebuild kit, have everything to rebuild the valve. All right, so we're going to get going on this DIY watering system for our maternity rack. So let's go over our supplies.
All right, so before we start putting the watering system on the maternity DIY rack, let's go over our supplies. And all of these supplies will be linked down in the description below. So the first thing we have is our rodent drinking valves. Now we got 50 because we are not only doing the maternity DIY rack, but we are also going to be building 2 more rodent racks here in the upcoming weeks. So these are our rodent drinking valves, and we got these from Reptile Supply Company. And if you go on their website, you just type in rodent drinking valve. And there are several different options. There is a stainless steel valve. They have a threaded valve if you have a different setup and you want to thread on there. We just have your standard rodent drinking valve. And then they also have the rebuild kits, just like Reptile Basics. So I will have all of this linked down in the description below, but this is just an easy way to find it as well. So all of the other supplies I'm going to show you came from Reptile Basics. And if you go on their website, you go under menu, And if you go down, they have a tab that says rodent supplies. And then here are all the different supplies that I'm going to be showing you. They also have the rodent drinking valves, but as I said, they are still out of stock and they don't know when they're going to be in stock. They have different caging options. They are out of stock of a lot of stuff right now, unfortunately. And then here are some of the things I'm going to show you. So this is where I've gotten all of my supplies from other than the rodent drinking valve. So let's go ahead and show you all of those things now. So the first thing is going to be this flexible water tubing. And I believe we got 50 feet in order to do 3 total racks. So that is the first thing. Now, the second thing or third things, let's see if we can get these out one-handed, are these nifty things. So this first piece is called a quick connect bulkhead. Let me show you this end piece. It actually screws off. You drill an appropriate size hole in whatever bucket you're going to use. This piece, this is the outside. So this goes through your bucket and then you screw this piece on hand tight inside the bucket. And that was what I just showed you, that these male pieces go in. Let's see if I can get it in there. These ones, the O-rings are snug. You go in there and they tighten and they lock in there. So, and then these pieces are called a male quick connect fitting. So, we got enough to do the maternity rack and 2 more racks, and then I bought just 1 extra to have an extra one on hand. So the next thing we got is these clamp loops. And these are just to go over the tubing, and they come with the screws, and that is to hold the tubing in place on your rack. And you can get it in several different quantities. I got 50 just to have extra and to do the 3 racks. So the next thing we got is the 3/16 fitting, and this is just a 50 pack, and these are the T's. And just so you know, the tubing size and the end size on the valves, this part where the tubing goes on, this is a 3/16. So I mean, if you bought the rodent valves and you didn't want to get this tubing, you could find any appropriate tubing as long as it's 3/16 and it would work just fine. These quick connects they're just plastic. They're fine for water. We're not putting anything else through these besides water, so we're not worried about any kind of corrosion. And then we also got the elbows, and those are just the little L-shaped for different corners that we need them for. And then I believe there is 50 of these. These are the mounting clips for the drinking valves. And as you saw when I took the valve off, these just slip through here and then you put the hose on them. So those are all the supplies that we are going to be using to do the watering system on our DIY racks. See if we can show it all in one shot. So those are all of our supplies. Now I'm going to get going on doing the rack. I am probably just going to do a time lapse right now on doing the rack, and then I will show you exactly how I did it. So that's why I wanted to show you the supplies firsthand. So I'm going to get going on that right now. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we need to measure the diameter of our bulkhead in order to drill the appropriate hole in our bucket. Now, you want to get this as perfect as possible so this O-ring seats so you don't have any leaks. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this nifty little tool, which is a caliper. And then that way you guys can see what this is, so that way you don't need this nifty tool. So we're going to turn this baby on. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to stick this around the threads, which is what we need to. And I have this set on millimeters, which is 15.8. I've already done the conversion, but I'll just show you it's pretty easy. This comes out to a 5/8. And you can see that because I can put it on my step bit, and it is on the 5/8 mark. I don't know if you can see that, but there's different marks. So that is 5/8. So we are going to drill a hole in our bucket up to the 5/8 mark. All right, I've kind of made a little guide mark with a Sharpie. And now I'm just going to drill a pilot hole before I start using my step bit to make the hole a little bit bigger. Nice and gentle and easy. So what I like to do before we ever start drilling is just take a little bit of tape and mark off where we need to stop. Because obviously once the drill gets going, you're not going to be able to see all of those little marks. So we're just going to give ourselves a little bit of a guide. All right, so now we know we don't want to go past the tape. Now I'll probably go just about a little bit before the tape and stop and just double check my measurements. It's always good to check twice before you screw it up. Okay, I'm just going to double check real quick. See, we're still a little bit too small in the hole, so we're going to keep going. And that should be perfect. And there you go. All right, so we're gonna take a little bit of this bag balm and we are just going to put just a tiny bit of lube on this O-ring before we tighten it down in here. Only takes a tiny little bit just to give the O-ring a tiny bit of lubricant. And I like using the bag balm because if for some reason it gets in the water, it's not harmful to the rats. We're not lubing an engine here, so you don't want to use anything with chemicals in it. We're just going to put a little bit around here. This prolongs the life of the O-ring as well. All right, just a little bit. We're going to put this in here and get it tightened up. All right, and then inside the bucket, we're going to put the little ring on. Now, if you don't have very good finger strength, like I don't, then you can use a little pair of channel locks to kind of tighten it down. Just remember, this is plastic and it is pushing against that O-ring, so it doesn't take very much to get it all tightened down. Okay, we always keep a top on this just to keep dust and dirt or whatever else out of the bucket when there's water in there, so it's not actually there to seal. But before you put this up on your rack or you hook it up to anything, you want to put some water in it and just double check that seal. So we're going to put enough water in here just to cover the bulkhead. And then I'm going to stick a little bit of a paper towel underneath there. And we're going to leave that there and just double check and make sure there's no leaks while we get going on the rest of the rack. All right, quick intermission. As I'm sitting here doing this DIY rack,
and I have it on the time lapse, I hear a little squeak. Check this out. She is in the process of giving birth right now. There is one baby that is out. So that is gonna be really exciting. Probably won't show you how many she has in this video, but it will definitely be up for another video for next week. So let's get finishing this DIY watering system. So I'm about halfway done with this rack. I think I'm gonna call it a day and finish the other half tomorrow, but I can show you what I did and you'll kind of get the gist of it. The bottom layers are gonna be the same as the top layers that I've already done. But as you can imagine, there is 3 water valves on each shelf and there's 9 shelves. So there's 27 total, not to mention all the other connections. These connections are tiny. You have to hold on to them with your fingers and get them on there. So my fingers are getting a little wore out and sore. So that's another reason I'm gonna call it quits today. So let me go ahead and show you how I did everything. And then like I said, the bottom levels are gonna be the same thing. So first, our bucket has been sitting here for about an hour, no leaks. So we're good to go on that. So our bucket is gonna sit right here. And the way we designed this, the bucket sits on these brackets. So it won't sit directly on this. It'll sit right here. And then in the future, I think we might build some kind of bracket. So that way, if for some reason we did have an earthquake, because we live in areas where we could have earthquakes, we don't have to worry about this bucket shifting and maybe falling off. So that is something we're gonna consider for the future. But here is our male end that would connect into the bulkhead. And then we put, or I put a T here. These are our little clips to make sure that it's secure. You don't want these anywhere near this grate because the rats will chew through them and that could be a huge problem. So then we go here, we have another T and then another T and then an elbow at the end. And then all you do is slip these over. Got your water valve. And then these are going to just sit in here. And you kind of have to finagle these. I kind of do the back first like that and slide it in. And then you just push that, locks it in. So that's how each one of these go. I'm leaving them like this so that way I don't have to keep taking them off if I need to take the buckets out for any reason. So, but that is the top row. Now the top row is a little bit different because there's nothing up above. It was easy for me to put it on this centerpiece. So let me show you how I did the other ones. So then off the top, we come behind this first post. And then for each level, it comes down to a T, and then I put one of the clasp just below the T, so it kind of keeps this in place. And that goes all the way down behind this post, so it's kind of hidden from front view. And there's gonna be a T for every one, except for this bottom one. There's gonna be an elbow, because obviously we don't need to go any further than this. Now, I ended up stopping on, what is this, the 4th row, so I have about 5 more to go. So off of this T, we kind of just rounded this down. And because there's not much room between these shelves, obviously I can't get the drill down in order to drill it on the top of this post. So what I did is I put it along this back post, and I made sure that I put one of these little clasps right next to this, so this can't go down anymore. See, this one has a little bit of flex, but not enough to where the rat can reach it. Their noses can only reach a tiny, tiny little bit above this to get the food. And then there's one over here. And I made sure I put this one as far down as I could so it kind of holds it so there's no lax. And then if I feel like this maybe needs one, I can always put an extra one there. But for now, that's the way I did it. And then each one of these has the water valve. And then when we put the water valve in here, I think I'm gonna put it in this one. There we go. Let's look at it from the side. See, and then each one has it in like that. And then it's all the way down. And then when we go ahead and stick our bucket in, it is just barely missing that bucket and perfect. So this is how each one will go on every single level. They're all pretty much cut the same. I don't pre-cut any of this stuff. I just go level by level with the big bundle of tubing that we got and cut accordingly. I have found that if I pre-cut, sometimes they end up getting shorter over time. So I just cut as I go. But then these ones will do the same thing. And then we have one mama in here right now. I transferred all of the other ones over because the babies are getting ready to be weaned and they're a little too big for this. So this was kind of a good opportunity to get this done without stressing out too much. This mama actually lost the majority of her litter. There's only one baby in there. So what I'll probably do, since her level is next, that's another reason I'm stopping today, is I'm going to move her to one of these top levels before I continue down. All right, so that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing an update on our mice. And that was kind of perfect timing. They started having babies today. So I will have an update for you guys next week on how they're doing. I believe she is still giving birth. It looks like daddy's helping her. So we'll see how that goes. I really hope she doesn't eat them. So far, it looks like she's taking care of them this time around. So we will just have to see how that goes. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns about the watering system, maybe about how to rebuild the valve, let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you enjoy this video. I am going to be making another DIY rat rack, but it is going to be the same as our other ones. So it's not going to be anything different. I'll show you guys when I make another one, but I'm probably not going to do a detailed tutorial on like me and my husband did in the past, just because we've already kind of done that. So we are going to be doing a lot more DIY builds, but they're going to be more reptile enclosures and things like that on the channel. So if you're interested in reptiles or reptile enclosures, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because all that is coming in the next few months. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and supporting us. I will see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay sane, get out there and make your own footprints. Bye.